Welcome back to the Process Champion Network. We recently met earlier this year to celebrate success of our 6 hours of process last year in 2022. So this is our first welcome back into Process Champion Network, looking into new topics and topics that were suggested by the group here who attend the call. So our first topic today is actually going to be process as the new normal, how to work this into our, weekly routines in our business. So today what we'll be reviewing is we'll just do some quick introductions for any new people on the call. I see new faces for myself, so I'd like to get introduced. And then we'll jump into the 2023 roadmap, really what we're looking at for the next 5 hours of this year with process that we have with you. And then talking about how to make process the new norm and giving some suggestions and recommendations about how to fold this into your, daily and weekly routine in your business. And then really hearing from you guys, so understanding your successes and challenges of how you're really making process a new norm, or the challenges in doing so, or really just understanding the next steps of where you all think you're going to be going with folding process into your routine. Any questions so far before we get started? Okay. Awesome. So I see a few faces on the call. If you're new, feel free to, we'll just leave the floor open here, but feel free to introduce us to yourself, your name, what team or unit you're from, and maybe about why you're showing up here and why you're interested in process. You can do it in the chat or, aloud as well. Either is welcome.
Oh, hi, I guess I can, and I just hopped in. Sorry for being a little bit late. I'm Andrea Natividad. I'm the Division Manager for Environmental Health Sciences. And nice to meet you all. Was there anything else that you wanted to know?
No. Were you invited here, or how did you come about the PCN?
Oh, yeah, I'm part of the Change Makers program.
Oh, excellent. Awesome. Sounds good.
Good morning. My name is Darshani Johnson. I use the she, her pronouns, and I'm part of the School of Public Health online MPH program. So I'm a program manager there, also part of the Change Makers. So Michael invited myself, and I see a few other familiar faces.
Welcome.
Hi, yes, my name is Toshi Casey, and I'm also with the Changemaker program, invited by Michael. I work in the Dean's office and academic personnel at the School of Public Health.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, everyone. Probably I'm the only one who's not from UC Berkeley. I'm from UCSD, and I'm a special project and an administrative officer. I'm working with Tony Nava, if you know him. So he invited me to this meeting, and because I'm new to this group, so I just wanted to say hi to everyone, and I'm looking forward to learning from everyone.
I'm so happy to have you. Yes, for those who don't know, we've recently expanded to inviting other UCs to this meeting as well, really trying to see holistically how UC is looking at process as a whole and understanding where we can share best practices and methodologies. So amazing to have you. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you. By the way, my name is Shisheen.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then we've got a couple people in the chat. I'll just call them out real quick. Ella has introduced herself. She says, hello, everyone. My name is Ella, she, her. I work in admissions for Berkeley Public Health, and I'm also part of the Changemakers group. So hi, Ella. And Jessica as well has introduced herself and said she, her pronouns as well, with health and social behavior programs and part of the Changemaker program as well. So lovely to have all the Changemakers here today. Exciting. And then Aisha has also introduced herself and says she's from Library Communications, Exhibits, and Environmental Graphics Coordinator. So welcome. Thank you so much for attending today. Any other introductions before we jump into the meat and potatoes here?
Sure. I'm Jacob, another member of the Changemakers program. I'm at UC Berkeley School of Public Health with one of the research groups there. Glad to be here.
Welcome, Jacob. All right. Okay, so that, I think that covers introductions. Let me just check the chat. Okay. Is it Dianine Johnson? Am I saying that right?
Deneen, yes.
Deneen, sorry about that.
No, no, you're fine.
So Denine's part of the change makers as well. She goes by she, her, and Aya, and she's a program manager for the Joint Medical Program. Excellent. So lovely to have you here.
Oh, I guess I should probably introduce myself for those who don't know me. I'm Jonathan. I'm the business operations lead at UHS. Mike's my mentor, so he incorporated me into this changemaker process, which I'm really excited to be a part of the group.
Awesome. Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you so much for coming. Mike, thank you for inviting all these amazing people. This is awesome. We've got change makers, UC San Diego. We've got the gamut here. So this is awesome.
Yeah, and also I want to throw out that for everyone that's here, thank you for your time and for joining and participating in this, and also feel free to invite anyone else that you think might be interested or that you think should join as well. So you should be able to add them to the calendar. If not, feel free to send me an email. So, all right, go ahead, Priya.
Awesome. All right, so real quickly, I just want to talk about where we're going with the 2023 roadmap for these meetings, right? So one thing we're pretty conscious about is your time, and we understand that we're only asking for a little part of it, so we want to make it meaningful. So last year, our kind of mantra / motto was looking at the 2022 roadmap and prioritizing process. So we basically said, hey, if you weren't thinking process at all last year, if you just showed up to these meetings, that was 6 hours more of process than you did in any other year before. And we were proud of that because process now became on your radar. And so we know that everybody is in varying degrees of where they are in their process journey. But what these meetings are essentially trying to do is help everyone have a good place of where to start and how to continue working on that momentum once you have started in your process journey. So still echoing off of what we did last year, and actually I think we did a poll question survey towards the end of our celebrating success and the previous meeting as well. We asked out to the audience. We said, what do you want to hear about? What more do you want to learn about process? And so that's kind of depicted here in the roadmap to come for 2023. So you see here, we already checked off celebrating success. Today we're on process as the new normal, and we'll get into that in just a second. But once we talk about process as the new normal today, really that helps us get into the next meeting that we have on the docket here, which is PDCA process improvement. So today we're going to be talking about how you can get foundationally started with doing process and working it into your daily routine and making it a part of your norm. And then we'll showcase how that helps you quick start these process improvements that we know everybody's yearning to do. But you can't really start there until you have process worked into the norm of your day-to-day. Then we'll go into later sessions about best practices for things like facilitation and process and documentation. And then a big topic du jour that kind of came back that we had showcased last year, and there's a lot of appetite for it again this year, is talking about sponsorship, and especially active sponsorship, how to drive that active sponsorship and keep sponsors engaged and aligned. And then the last topic that we'll close out the 2023 year with on our roadmap will be the Berkeley process architecture, and really showcasing where all these processes live and how we look at them in a structured model way on campus. So really understanding the work that you'll be doing in your own individual, how that contributes to the big whole of UC Berkeley and even the UC system. So I'll take a pause here and ask if there's any other topics that you're not seeing here that you're craving to see, or that you would like to hear about in the upcoming sessions. They're not all having to be focused on this. We can still incorporate some other things. So I'll just take a pause here and see if there's any feedback of any other topics we may want to hear about. All right. So if anybody thinks of anything else that we haven't covered today, or as we work through all these sessions, always feel free to use the chat to let us know if there's something that comes up top of mind that you're craving to hear more about. These sessions, these PCN meetings, these sessions are meant for as way more for you than they are for us as a BPMO office. We are simply hosting these meetings. This is a means for us to all collaboratively work together and talk together about this work. Okay, so that's the 2023 roadmap, making process work for you. And let's jump into how we're talking about, the benefits and how we're creating process as a new norm here. So one thing that we as a team hear all the time in BPMO, and I'm sure you hear it all the time, is that everybody's incredibly busy doing the work that they're already doing. Nobody has time to do anything more than the work that they're already overloaded with doing. And we're all trying to make it succeed, but with the work that we're doing. But too often we find that we allow the busyness of the work to get in the way from us investing in ways to make our work for us in better ways. And so what we mean by that is, it's the same old story. Maybe you have, I know for me personally, I've got this, this laundry that always breaks on me. So I'm always learning to work with it breaking on me, right? I'm putting in batches that are smaller in my laundry. I'm putting less detergent in my laundry, hoping that I can just finagle my way into making things work out. But why am I not getting it repaired? Because that would be the easiest solution, right? Why wouldn't I just call a repair person and get it repaired? So that's something that I see in my day-to-day life that I've been doing that I think, okay, well, I'm just letting that thing irritate me. And it's progressively getting incrementally a little bit worse each time. Inefficiencies are still happening and I'm still working through it and I'm band-aiding, every time I need to. But really, the easiest thing would be to get my laundry repaired and then I can just do laundry and not have to think about it like everybody else in the world. So we find that happens in our business as well. So you may come to this meeting thinking like, process, this is brand new to me. Really, it's not. We do processes in our day-to-day life all the time. And so what we're here to do today is really think about how we can just work that into our role in UC Berkeley and in the UC system. Okay. So we love to use this little graphic here, which is a great depiction of just kind of like what I've just described. And the graphic really speaks for itself, which it says, somebody's way too busy clogging through all the little, mishaps that are happening with their business process. They are clogging through it, system errors galore. We hear it all the time, this form's broken, or, this person's taking 5 days, but they are clunking through their business process. All the meantime, they could have been doing something else to help benefit them to make it more efficient. Right. So I know it's a funny graphic, but it is really the reality of what we see today. And so what we're here to say is that processes really describe what work we're doing, and improving these processes will help make our work easier. I'm not saying every process is going to become easier, but by documenting processes, you begin to understand the work you're doing to enable yourself to do it more efficiently. So really allowing us to focus our efforts where it matters the most. So let's say you're bought in right now. Let's say I'm doing a great job pitching this idea of documenting processes, or at least taking a look at process and getting started with it. So what do you do? Where do you begin? And so all we're here to tell you is just start somewhere, start small, start with something that's achievable, right? So we're saying, hey, document something, anything. And so what we really mean by that is creating a new behavior to work into, your day-to-day of what you're doing. So we know behaviors take a while. They say, I think it says it takes about 60 to 90 days to build a new behavior. And so that's through repetition, through, failing, succeeding, failing some more, then succeeding again, and just keep working through it. And so what we're here to say is, we're here to say that you don't have to do everything all at once. You don't need to know immediately how to use the software that we're telling you to use. You don't immediately need to know all the nitty-gritty best practices about how to document a process. You don't need to know every single element to at least start on this journey. Because like we said, you do process in your personal life. It's incrementally easier to look at your business processes and just start to document what you know. So you don't even need to reach out to other peers if you're not ready to take that step just yet. You can literally start with yourself. What do I do? What do I know? What am I an expert in? And how can I put that on paper so that I myself understand it and others can understand how it contributes to the bigger picture? Okay. So we hear it all the time, setting smart goals, setting smart achievable goals is really buzzy on campus. And I'm bringing it back here because obviously this is what we're really talking about, setting something that is achievable. And I really want to take a second to pause on that, because too often do we set these lofty goals for ourselves that really are unachievable. And what I mean by that is, and I'll use my personal day-to-day life, right? You always think about, man, I just want to be better. I want to be a better person. Everybody thinks that, right? There's so many things that I could do that I could be better. But better is not achievable. Better is not something that you can immediately say, check, I've done it. I've become better. What could I do that I could become a better person? Could I read one more book per month that I'm already reading that contributes to self-help? Could I, do something for my parents now that they're getting older on a monthly basis that alleviates a task from them? These are things that are achievable. I can now understand what task I have to do that directly contributes to me being a better person. So setting achievable goals that have, a time frame that is something that you can work with, and you know yourself better than anyone, and everybody's on this journey as an individual. So some people may only be able to look at a task for the day of. They cannot think about any other days. Or some people may need a month to consider the task that they're doing to work their way up to building this new behavior. But what we're here to say is, just start somewhere and start with what feels comfortable to you, because anything is better than nothing in this scenario. Just as you saw on the graphic, would you want to still be, clunking your way through your day-to-day business process with all those redundancies and things that stop you from being totally successful? Or would you like to take the 5 minutes or the 1 hour that you need to set yourself up for success in the future? I'll pause here and see if any of my team has anything else to chime in and say. Oh my gosh, there's other languages in the chat. I hadn't looked at the chat in a second. That's awesome. Okay. Mike, you want to say something here?
No, I think you're doing a great job. I mean, again, just starting is sometimes the hardest part. The first day of something is, whether it's going to the gym or eating better or whatever it is, and I'm sure Priya's going to mention this later, but even like having someone to help you along the journey, having someone to help hold you accountable, accountability partner, or however you want to word that, is really important. And again, don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about documenting the process perfectly. Just documenting something is an improvement, and then you can look at how to make things better. But you can't make things better until you know what your current state is, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, how often do we enter meetings where we're all able to tell each other what we don't like about some, business process that we're interacting with or something that we're doing with others, but none of us have seen it documented. So we're all talking about, the pains that we're feeling, but we don't have it documented to be able to action on what we want to change to make it better.
Yeah. And for those, and for those people who are actively documenting processes or who have documented lots of processes, maintaining that momentum is important too. And sometimes you not lose sight of the goal, but you get frustrated. Oh, I'm documenting all these processes and no one's using it, or it's not, it can get hard, but just keep chipping away, keep on documenting the processes, and people will see the value of it. And I think Priya's going to talk about later about how having these processes can be valuable.
And I would just add one thing, and then I see Eric's hand up there. Mike's mentioning that, there are people here that are in ProMap, they're documenting 5-10 processes a week. And there are people here that aren't in ProMap, and that's great. That's why we have these types of things to learn from one another. But don't overlook being part of a process and that you have awareness of, wow, this is not documented, right? Just that awareness about doing anything is a big start and opens up the gateway. If you're working on something and you're like, why is this form this way? Oh, it's not documented. Thinking process is a big step in the right direction, even before documenting something. So just realize, once your brain starts to realize the power and the transparency that documented processes bring so that we can adhere to them and we can improve them, is very important. Eric.
I'm so glad you all are referring to this. I've had to, we've lost 3 people in my department over the past 3, 4, 5 years, all having performed a sizable job. The first 2, we asked them to document how they did it, and they did not. And it really left us in a very, very, very dangerous place. This last one, they did document it, but not in a user-friendly way. So I've had to take on that task. And in taking it on, I've had to refashion what they've documented. And it is leading me to know that the level of person who was performing it, it needed a higher level person, because it really put the university at great risk. But at least we have the processes. The problem is, without having it documented and knowing how to do it, when you take something on, you can't hardly get through one thing before you've got somebody calling about something similar, and you're just so overwhelmed, you start hating your job. But once you learn how to do it, then you can start putting it to a process map and seeing, what can I cut out to make more time to do everything I'm supposed to be doing. And it just makes us much more valuable to the university by being able to do it. But it's hard, because we use terms and we use tools, and we do it just to do it sometimes, until you have to do it. And when you have to do it, it's a little bit too late, because you may not know how to do it.
That's right. Thanks for that, Eric. In some ways, I mean, documenting your processes can have an immediate impact in a positive way, knowing, hey, we documented our processes and we identified some gaps, and let's make some improvements. Or just documenting the process to identify, oh, there's multiple people involved with this. Let's go see how they do things and make sure that everyone's on the same page. But it's also an investment into your future as well. And I know sometimes it's hard for people to see that, but investing today for tomorrow, I think, sometimes people want that immediate return, but documenting processes now, just like saving $1 every single day, over time, it will add up and it will be valuable to you. Okay, so just think of that as not just, an immediate fix to something, which sometimes it is, but it's also an investment in the future for you, for your department, and for the university.
That's right. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, Eric. That's a very, very real problem. I mean, I know it's come straight out of your shop, and I can imagine just how interesting it is for you to be reviewing this information and thinking, oh no, I need to now rethink the role and the documentation that's happening right now. So it's very real, and it's a great example. Good luck to you with that, and we're here to help. Okay, so we may be wondering, I said we were all on this process journey in different points. So some may be just starting out, have never documented a process, never looked at one. Some may be like Eric, having inherited a document that may not be user-friendly, but still trying to make some semblance of it. So for those who don't know where to start, we are giving a few suggestions here on this slide. And so what we're saying is, if you don't know where to start, essentially for me, if I never knew where to start with process, I think the first thing I would want to do is inventory my process. So me taking a second to look at what it is I do for campus, or what it is that I do in my business operations, and can I write that in actionable steps down on a piece of paper or down in a document? Can I just list off what I do as a process? And if I can, great. If I can't, okay, let's take a step back and just talk about one thing I do. What is one thing that I do in my business? And so creating an inventory helps you understand a list of what you do. And then essentially, if you create a list, then we can start looking at prioritizing what you want to really document or process map. So then we say from an inventory, you can prioritize, You can start documenting just what you know. You can identify who's a process owner for those processes. So it may be you, it may be your boss, it may be somebody out in a different department, but you still interact with that process. So all these different things can come about just by you literally sitting there and thinking about what it is what do I do, and can I write that down and understand it in a layman's way? We're also suggesting that you can get trained in ProMap if you feel like you're at that point to start documenting. But it's not an immediate first step. Really, the first step is, taking a second to document and understand what you do and what you know, and if you can write that down.
We're trying to get unstuck, right? So getting unstuck, as Mike alluded to, is one of the hardest things. And these are just 5 avenues. There's many more to get unstuck and get process part of your norm, which is why we're talking about that topic. I've been on campus almost 10 years, and I haven't conducted a survey or a questionnaire or a meeting in which someone didn't lead with what Priya led with, which is, I am too busy to do any process in my unit. Okay, that's 10 years. I know our colleague has no power. Nick's been here almost 20 years. He would say the same thing. And we believe in that, but we felt compelled to try to drive towards action of getting unstuck and figuring out how, instead of just listening and saying we're all too busy. So that's the purpose of coming together and giving you these 5. And a little later on in the session, we'll talk a little bit more about your thoughts and your opinions that we might have overlooked or haven't talked about here as well. So breaking the habit that we're in today, creating the behavioral shift in oneself is what we're talking about. It's not easy. Changing human behavior is hard. We as humans are creatures of habit, and we do not want to change.
That's true. I mean, really what it boils down to today is we're giving you a base of where to start. But like we said, it's about setting those goals and really making that behavior stick. So we're giving you some points to start out with. We're also setting you up for, ongoing success by having drop-in hours, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But really what we're trying to do is this network here is supporting each other getting unstuck collectively. So we only have, let's see, 22 people on the call today, but if you look at the invite, there are many more invited. Many of us on this campus are trying to be unstuck. Many of us are trying to document what we know, because we know we'll be in a different role sometime soon. We know we may not even be at the campus in the next 5 years. So we need to absolutely document what we do today. Otherwise, others will just be out of luck and there will be no information to carry over. So I want us to all challenge ourselves to think about, when we started in our role at Berkeley, how much information we were handed over to do our role, and think about what you can leave behind if you were to move on or move laterally in Berkeley, or, move out of the position, or if you just want to carry on this information to other business partners. So I think I came into my role with very little training, it's what training that you already come with. And I think that's beautiful, but we also need to do a better job collectively of setting ourselves up and the future up for success. And so that starts here. It starts with creating a new behavior, and it starts with starting small with documenting just one thing. And we've said it in personal meetings within our BPMO. We said, man, if we got everybody to just document just one process on campus, just one process, that would be an astronomical difference. Because could you imagine that wealth of information that would have come from at least one individual on campus from everyone? I mean, that would be amazing.
Think about those numbers annually. What do we have? 8,000 to 15,000 staff members or something? One process per year. That's 8,000, even on the minimum, a year. Think about how big that central repository of process would grow if 8,000 staff members documented one process in ProMap a year. 8,000 year over year. My dream would come true, which has been to map every process in the university from day one, stepping.
Well, even if you just look at the number of invites on the PCN, which is about 78 people. So if 78 people documented one process a month, that's great too.
Continuous improvement at its finest right there, right? Small steps from everybody get the entire organization to the finish line.
And oftentimes I'll also say this, we find that, you know, we'll get handed projects with kind of a problem statement that isn't fully fleshed out. So it's, can you take a look at this onboarding process and help us understand? Sure, we can, and we can go talk about it with everybody, but shouldn't we like have everybody agree on what we're actually looking at? Create one type of like operational definition or one type of business process that we're looking at to get everybody on board of where we're going for a process improvement project, or just looking at updating this process. So what we find is it's better to have something to react to with the group, even if you don't know if you're not the holder of all the information of that process. And so, you know, it gives people a good starting out point to start having the conversation of, oh, well, you didn't include this, or actually this is a part of this process. Maybe you might not have known, or, you know, we actually are updating this in the midst of updating this process. Once you have something documented and you could show it to people, I guarantee you it gets the conversation going a lot quicker than you would expect. So it can be really, really a powerful tool, even if you don't hold all the information yourself, because it becomes the catalyst of a starting point of having those meaningful conversations with people. Okay. So just kind of rounding out the conversation here, which is how to make process stick and get everyone else on board. So like we said here, it's an individual journey. So we're talking at everyone as individuals, understanding that every individual goes through their own pace of change. And if you leave here today, some people will immediately start documenting. Some people will take a month before they even remember the word process again. Some people will come back to the next PCN and say, I did absolutely nothing, but I still want to do something. And so we know it takes a while to get everybody else on board, but here are just 4 suggestions that we also have to get others included in the conversation as well. So if you're a leader or a team leader or a supervisor or anybody else who manages a team, we suggest carving out regular times in your team meetings to just talk process or just talk about anything related to this subject. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it could be as little or as much as you want, but just re-including it back in the conversation as a topic so people know that it is important and it still keeps the needle moving forward. If you're a part of leadership or you're involved in leadership meetings, also putting it at that level, putting process back into leadership meetings so they understand that we need documented processes to further process improvements and to continue with the projects that we are being handed down from leadership. And then 2 other big ones that we have are, we're suggesting, you know, we know that this is not everybody's day-to-day task is mapping a process or even documenting what they do. So we're suggesting to offer it as folding it into your achieve together or your performance goals. Put this on your performance goal for you and your manager to keep talking process, as well as for you to get recognized for the work that you're doing on the side with this, and really understand and helping drive your department forward by getting these documented and mapped. It helps to have something that, you know, you can be tied to for accountability. I personally have it on my Achieve Together. So when I talk with Mike, I'm talking about, have I documented my change management and my process methods so that others, whoever comes to BPMO next, can be able to get trained in the same way that we teach this to the campus. And so it is on mine as much as it can be on yours, your performance goals. And then the last thing I'll say here is that we do have process support that BPMO offers, everything from process to change management to project management, everything in between, some facilitation tips and what have you. We offer drop-in hours on Wednesdays, and it actually is in this same spot that we're in right now for the PCN meeting. So we only have 6 PCN meetings a year, and all the other Wednesdays are dedicated to drop-in hours. So the only time you don't have drop-in hours are on the days we have a PCN, so we continue actioning on process. So what are process drop-in hours? They are quick 15-minute slots that you can book with BPMO, and you can literally come to these slots saying, hey, I attended a PCN meeting. I don't remember how I'm supposed to start with process, but I want to start and I just need some instruction. Help me out. Or you could come to the process drop-in hours with something like with what Eric described, which is, I have a process document, not sure how to go about putting it into this new format. Can you help me take a look at this and understand how we can really make this a better document to work for everyone else? So we get a full-blown set of topics. We've had people who have been working on process in the background for months who have 50 processes documented. And sometimes they come to the process drop-in and say, okay, I've documented 50 processes, but I'm getting lost in the sauce. What's the next step here? I'm just documenting the document now. What's my next step? And so we help you take those next steps in your process journey so that you do feel that you're still accountable and that there is a team helping you around and supporting you through this journey. Because we recognize we're all individuals going through this, but we need a team to support ourselves going through this as well.
Change makers, hint, hint. Just throwing that out there. Use that time. Eric's got his hand up.
I have a suggestion how everybody can get involved in this. We all have something we're responsible for, something that we're responsible for that is most probably listed on our departmental websites. And then at some point, those websites have to be corrected. And if you can't get somebody to correct it for you, do you know how to do it yourself? There's a process behind that isn't too dangerous. I know this from experience. So that's just an easy process to learn and document. How do I go in and make a typographical correction, make a grammatical correction, add a word or two to my website for a process I'm responsible for? I think that's an excellent way to learn how to document a process that you may not otherwise know how to do and won't take you too far out of what your span of control is.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a great example of just documenting something, just starting off, even if it's something, updating the website or documenting how you run a report, whatever it may be.
Great suggestion. Awesome. So before we hear from you, I'm just here to say that you don't have to do this alone. We know that it's an individual journey, but by no means are you being left alone to lead process in your own silo. We are here to help. But what does process really do for us? It creates this feedback cycle. So once something gets documented, once you share it out to others, it creates this continuous loop of people coming back and referring either to the process owner or to the process expert. You start to hear conversations going. Now that it's documented, people will start to say, oh my gosh, I've never seen this process at all documented. And you're thinking, wow, you've been doing it for 15 years. You should have. But far often than not, we find that once you document something and you share it out, you're getting a great conversation going, whether it's people just giving accolades of having it documented, everything from, suggestions of how to make it better and to collaborate to now make this process work better for the group. What documenting also does is it helps us to quick start process improvement. So in the next session, as I teased out in the roadmap for the next PCN in May, we'll be talking more about the PDCA cycle, which is Plan, Do, Check, Act. And this is our quick start to process improvement. So we know a lot of times most people are documenting something because they have either a project. I know change makers, you guys have projects that you're trying to improve or update. And so what we're doing is we're going to explain how documenting process can help you quick start that feedback cycle to lead into continuous improvement, process improvement with PDCA. And so we'll show you how to get there. It's no longer going to be a long slog of, 5 different, like a 5-step methodology. Now we're doing something quick and actionable that everybody can get on board with. And then what does process documentation do? This is just 3 of many things, but the third is we've seen it today, which is that when you document processes, you can use this to train new employees. So we've had great success with our counterparts in UDAR saying, once we've documented this process, once somebody's getting onboarded into this new project management role, they've already got a repository of how we do the work and what we're expecting of their work. So you kind of get like a nice little handhold into your job when you're a new employee on campus. And I think that's that's amazing, because I never got handed that, and I'm sure many of us on this call never got handed a set of documented processes of how to do our work, right? And how we interact with others. So these are just a few of many ways, but this you don't have to do it alone. And this is how taking documented processes can propel you into those next steps of process improvement and building great feedback cycles. All right, so if you walk away with nothing else but doing one thing more today than you did before, we're calling that a success. I'm calling that a success all day. So if you come away today with just thinking, wow, Priya was right, I do process in my day-to-day, or, you know, I can just document one thing that I know, that would be a huge success for us. Like we said, one person documenting one thing per month or per year is more than having someone not. So we really just want to get the ball going on making process the new norm, really thinking about working this into your day-to-day, helping you understand, you know, how you can make your work better. All right, so I'll have Chris kind of lead us into our discussion topic here.
So normally we do this early on where we just kind of open up the floor to share what kind of process challenges, successes you're having in your area. And so what we did was just take this towards the end of the meeting to open the floor up in a way that was really focused on this norm. So we're just going to open up. We gave you some places to start, some places to get unstuck. We're just going to open up to everyone now to share things that either are happening in your unit on how you might see becoming the new norm that we didn't share, things that you're going to do, things you want to do, challenges in your area as well to becoming the new norm. One of the things we can sit here and say, hey, make this your new norm. But if you go into your performance and you're a chief together and say, hey, I want to carve out an hour a week for process, and your manager says, no, that's a challenge. We want to hear about that. That may happen. So if there are things we overlooked here, let's bring them forth and have a discussion about it. So we're just going to open it up to understanding how and what is missed here and areas that might be a good route to making process the norm in the area of the campus you work. And feel free to you can raise your hand and talk aloud. You can put it in the chat. Either way works. Jessica, and then Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to share. I think something that I am trying to do on top of the Changemaker program is build a process or outline for concurrent programs, which just means for students that they can get, you know, two degrees in 3 years. Something that's really, really challenging is that each school operates silos, right, in silos, and so they kind of have different information, and it's very confusing for students and for staff. So this whole starting, you know, like just trying to document is so overwhelming, because it's like you don't even know where to start, right? Like you don't even know like what is true, what is up, what is down. And so that kind of plan and research phase is so important, but it's so overwhelming. And it feels like success is so far off. So that's just something that I've been thinking about through this this discussion.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jessica.
That's great, and that happens a lot, and that's one of the power of documenting processes. You kind of start seeing all the different silos and trying to figure out getting people in the room. It's definitely not easy, but it's great that you're thinking about it. It's great stuff.
I think Lisa had her hand up next.
Hello, everyone. I've been to one of these before, and so I didn't do an introduction, but I'm sure not everyone might be familiar with me. I am Lisa Hisson. I am relatively new to UC Berkeley. I am in a new team called IT Service Management that's newly formed this year, and I will be the process owner for IT change management, incident as well as major incident. And so when I ran across the BPM website, I was absolutely ecstatic. So I've started, just a couple of successes is I have started my ProMap documentation about the existing change process today. And it's my understanding that not all IT groups use change today. So my hopes was to document it, make some improvements within the process, and then try to get other groups on board. So that's ultimately, you know, from a SMART goal perspective, one of the places that I'm hoping to be. And then my next will be to document the incident process. As you can imagine, several groups are doing incident management today, but I'll be documenting what should be perhaps a best practice, and then trying to get other groups to adopt best practices, and that's where I'm at today.
Awesome, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing, and welcome as always. We really appreciate you in the work you're doing, driving, especially as a new employee here. It's really powerful stuff. So thank you for that. So we have 3 hands up, Shin, then Jessica, then Toshi.
Hi, I just wanted to echo what Jessica Cole just said regarding the Concur. She works with the students, and I don't work with the students, but our office has 19 people. And so a lot of them travel to facilitate, and then they are project managers, directors. So they travel and they don't have time to do their Concur request or travel request. So we do have a process, and I do send them the link, like, look here, because I'm also busy. I support other executive leaders. However, they always come back with the same questions that already they can find in the process map. So my challenge is how to get them, just like what we talked about in the beginning, to establish that behavior or the habit to go there to look, and then when they have a questions, and they can come to me. And then sometimes I just end up having a 30 minutes in-person meeting with them, just to walk through them step by step how to do things. But then later they forget again.
Yeah.
So it's like a vicious circle, and I can't, yes, can you just share some of your experience, like how you get people establish that habit or develop that habit?
Yeah, so I would make 2 comments, and then others can chime in, but what you're seeing is very common, in that part of this is growing process maturity across the UC system and across the campus. And what I mean by that is, even when you have a process built and you send someone to go do it, the first is they're just not in that mindset, right? We need to do this and not give up and keep doing it and keep doing it, even though you have to take the half hour, right? The more we do this, hopefully it gets ingrained and the campus gets used to seeing process, and the UC system gets used to seeing processes. Even when you see emails at the highest level, you know, sometimes they'll come out and they'll say, this is the process we follow, and it's embedded, and you click on that process. 9 out of 10 times it sends you to a website with scrolling words of page after page that's not helpful. So depending on the content of that process, what I would say to you also is that, so there's one thing which is just, we have to keep at it. We have to get people used to thinking this way. The second part is, if you're getting that feedback that they keep coming back with the same questions, to me, it's a little bit of an opportunity to say that process might need some improvement on those questions, or something's not clear. Even if the information is there, it might not be in a place where they're able to access it very simply. So I would say 2 things. Don't give up. We're trying to build process maturity and build this kind of muscle memory around process. And the second thing is, if you're getting that repetitive pattern, oftentimes it may be an opportunity to improve, or put those questions right up front in the process that you keep getting, you know, somewhere where they can see them, or align with an FAQ in that process that has those questions you keep getting, and see what happens, and don't give up as well. But process is something that is infinite. It never ends. I hate to say this to the group, you never reach the finish line. It's kind of like a cook. A cook never reaches the finish line. You're always moving towards, it's a field in which you don't really have a finish line. Process is very similar. it's iterative. It is a continuous improvement effort. And once we embrace that we will be on this journey for the rest of our lives, that's one of the ways to think about it. So I think Mike, you have something, and then we'll go to Jessica and Toshi.
Yeah, I just want to add something real quick. So I want to give Jessica and Toshi time, but also, part of process we can't forget also is, change management and communication as well, right? Because it's just like, implementing a new solution or something, but if the, if the change management isn't thought out, or the communication isn't thought out, I've experienced that part as well. Someone like, well, we sent a Cal message to everybody. It's like, well, okay, well, that's not the answer to everything, right? So understanding who the users are, who's impacted, who's not impacted, and having targeted communications, I found in the past that's really helped with even small implementations, really being targeted communications to help kind of get around from that, people kind of coming to me and asking me the same questions all the time. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and really great observation. Was that helpful? I mean, I just don't want you to listen to us and say, no, I've tried that and it doesn't work. So was that helpful at all on thinking about it?
Yeah, it also requires some patience too.
That's right. That's right. For sure. So we'll go to Jessica and then Toshi.
Hi, everyone. Success was that my colleague Michelle and I submitted a proposal to the In-Person Now conference to talk about our experience in the Berkeley Public Health Changemakers project and the admissions processes that we documented. Unfortunately, we weren't selected to present at the in-person conference, but they did offer us an opportunity to do a training or a workshop. And so we're thinking through what that could look like, but it was still fun and exciting to take ownership over it and put it out there and hopefully support Berkeley and the other UC systems in increasing their process maturity. And then I would say a challenge I've been running into is a little bit of this thought error, maybe is what I'd call it, of for the Changemaker project, when we were documenting processes related to the admissions process, to me, it felt valuable because I'm like, so many people could use this or access it, and it directly impacts multiple people's jobs. But when it comes to my own work, I typically am maybe the only person doing a lot of my responsibilities, or maybe one other person. And so I don't feel as motivated to document it. And so I just wanted to share that. I want to now put it in my Achieve Together. I still see value, but I'm experiencing a lot more resistance for those processes rather than something that impacted a broader staff population.
And Jessica, just to ask a question, is the resistance you're resistant to doing it because it doesn't impact so many people? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really powerful and vulnerable and great to say. And interesting that you somewhat hit the ball out of the park with your first kind of process where it touched so many people, and now you have, your own. But I don't have much to say because I think that's a really vulnerable space and a great place, other than document it and get yourself involved in one that touches thousands of people again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
keep
great.
that motivation.
Thanks for sharing. And as you work through this, come back and tell us about it, because part of this would be, I would send you on to the barrier point assessment and send you on to assessing yourself on why you're resistant. And sure, on the surface, it's telling you that you're resistant because it's not impacting so many people. But is there something deeper in which we could use a change tool to work on yourself in a quick little assessment to get you through that, so you're not stuck, to get unstuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about that offline, or if that's something you're interested in.
Sounds good.
But bring it back, because it's a really great one for people to hear, hey, I brought this 2 PCNs ago and it was my own resistance problem, and here's how I solved it, or I'm still stuck, because we'll all learn from it, right? That's the great thing about this. So thanks for sharing that. Toshi.
Yeah, mine's just really quick. I just wanted to say thank you for having this meeting, because as a new employee starting, I experienced kind of a culture shock when I came in, because my team did not have anything documented as far as training goes. So my first 4 months were very frustrating, and I had started pushing to get processes documented just for myself, for my own training, but then I kind of ran out of steam with that, and have been in this lull environment where I'm just like, it just kind of hit a wall. And being here in the meeting today and being like, okay, you know what, I can just start again and start small again, and documenting the things that I'm doing has been very helpful in hopefully getting me re-energized and pushing into getting those documents more formalized. So I appreciate the meeting and just having that there, because I was kind of hitting a wall recently with my own personal work, not just the work on the Changemaker project. So I thank you for the meeting.
That's great, Toshi. And you're not alone. I think we all can share. I don't know anybody on this meeting who walked into a set or a playbook of processes when they started their job, but that's the future state and why we are here. That's what we would love. The people that come to work at Berkeley over the next 150 years, when we're dead, we would love to say that part of the genesis, now they're walking into a list of processes that they already have documented that they can improve. So we really share that, and we know you're not alone. And I think we're right at 12, so I'll turn it back over here to Priya to let us round it out for the respect to everybody's time.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing amazing challenges and success stories so far, and we really look forward to hearing more in the next PCN. So just a reminder, next PCN is in May. I think it's, let me just get the thing here. I think it's May 17th. Yeah, May 17th. So looking forward to hearing more of those stories come May 17th of whether there's any challenges or more successes coming your way. So we leave you with this last question to think about from between now and the next PCN, which is, what are your thoughts on what actions you can take to really start making process the new normal in your individual day-to-day and for your teams? So next PCN, we'll be circling back on this topic to see, hey, did you at least document one thing, or did you think about the inventory of your process, or did you just think process at all? And really just see where the group lands and understanding how to take process going and move it into process improvement going into PDCA. So how to make that process work for you and really actioning on it. Additionally, there are just two other resources here I want to mention before we hop off, which is that we always have the BPMO office hours that I mentioned earlier in the meeting. Feel free to, we'll be sending out an email after the PCN, just rounding out all the information we've provided today. And it'll also have a link to our appointment slots. It's quick 15-minute appointment slots, and you can just drop in at any time for BPMO office hours. They're every Wednesday from 11 to 11:45. And then for ProMap training, we always have ProMap training going on. So go ahead and submit an online request form if that is something that you're yearning to get trained in. So we can always support there. Anything else from the team?
That's it. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, everybody. I put some links in the chat. And like Priya said, we'll be sending an email to everyone later today.
Feel free to invite whoever. We appreciate those from outside of Berkeley as well. Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate that. Feel free to invite your colleagues.
Take care, everyone. Have
Thanks,
a great rest of
everyone.
your week. Stay safe.